You know, 3x3 basketball is just one of the fastest growing sports on the entire planet. It's this explosive, high-energy game that was literally born on the street, and somehow it has fought its way all the way to the Olympic stage. It's an incredible story.
And in Spain, a really vibrant, really passionate 3x3 community was just blowing up. This whole scene was built from the ground up by these super dedicated organizers and players who just lived and breathed the game. But here's the thing. Just as their creation was really hitting its stride, a major institution shows up, threatening to take over the very space these pioneers had worked so hard to carve out for themselves. So yeah, this is the story of that collision.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, you first have to understand the unique opportunity, this kind of void that existed in the Spanish sports world just a few years ago.
So let's dive into it. For anyone who's new to the game, 3x3 is a completely different beast from your traditional 5-on-5 basketball. It is relentless. You've got a 12-second shot clock, it's all on a half court, and the action is just non-stop. Its roots are in street ball for sure, but its future is definitely on the world stage. But here was the problem in Spain. It was simple, really. While the summer was totally packed with tournaments, the calendar was a ghost sound from November all the way to May. This created what one organizer perfectly called a rabid demand from players who wanted to compete all year long, but had absolutely nowhere to play.
And into that void, well, that's where a group of innovators stepped in. They saw the gap, they heard the players, and they decided, you know what? We're going to build something ourselves. And look, this wasn't some big corporate venture. As co-founder Alex explains, this thing was born out of pure necessity. It was a community project. They created a private winter league called Liga Indoor, a nonprofit built for one simple reason: to give the teams a place to play. And what's so important to understand is that they didn't just start a tournament. They built a whole ecosystem from scratch. For 3 straight years, they learned, they adapted, they improved, and they created this stable, successful league where absolutely nothing existed before. But after 3 years of this grassroots success, the Goliath to their David arrived. The powerful Spanish Basketball Federation, the FEB, decided it was time for them to get in the game.
You see, Spanish teams were winning medals on the world stage, so the federation was, as one observer put it, pretty much forced to create something. They saw the potential the pioneers had already proven, and they decided to launch their own official winter league right on top of the one that was already there.
And this created a fundamental clash of philosophies. On one side, you've got this bottom-up grassroots movement with years of hard-won, hands-on experience, and on the other, a top-down institution with immense power, but one that was, frankly, making the same mistakes the private league had already figured out and solved in its first year.
This is a powerful analogy from one of the organizers, and it describes the Federation's approach perfectly. It's like they just threw a stone into the water and waited to see what would happen, without really thinking through the consequences, without talking to anyone.
And yeah, the consequences were immediate. When you have an institution trying to just impose itself on a community it didn't build, well, it created chaos for pretty much everyone involved.
The problem became clear almost right away. I mean, look at the data from the Federation's own events. Despite all their official backing, some of their tournaments couldn't even fill the 16 available team slots. That's a huge red flag, a clear sign of a disconnect with the actual community.
The Federation's arrival just exposed all these deep, structural issues. Suddenly, there's a huge shortage of trained 3x3 refs. They're releasing schedules without even having firm dates. They were basically trying to force this new, agile sport onto the old, rigid railroad tracks built for traditional basketball. And the result? Just confusion. Total confusion, with teams caught right in the crossfire.
The uncertainty got so bad that the pioneers at Liga Indoor had to make a really difficult choice. To avoid adding to the scheduling chaos and to protect their community, they canceled their own successful league format.
But they did not quit, not even close. Instead, they adapted. They reinvented themselves. They shifted from running a league to organizing these one-off open tournaments, finding new ways to fill the gaps and serve the players who still had that rabid demand to compete. So all this conflict has left 3x3 in Spain at a really critical crossroads. The entire future of the sport's growth is kind of hanging in the balance right now.
When you look at it, the path forward seems to have 2 very clear options. You can have a fractured system where everyone's competing against each other for dates and players, and the community just suffers. Or you can have a collaborative one where you combine the Federation's power and resources with the priceless, on-the-ground experience of the private organizers. And the potential there? It's huge. You could create one of the best 3x3 leagues in all of Europe.
So how do you get there?
Well, according to the experts, the people who've been building this sport for years, the answer isn't at the top with the elite teams. It's actually at the very foundation. You have to go back to the beginning.
They argue that the focus has to shift to los peques, the kids. Right now, the sport has been built from the top down, starting with senior competition. But to create a truly healthy, sustainable ecosystem, you've got to generate that passion at the school level, in public parks, and create a huge base of young players who grow up with 3x3 as their sport. It's a bottom-up solution.
Which really leaves us with this final thought. For a game that got its soul from the raw, gritty energy of the streets, is its future in Spain going to be decided in boardrooms, or will it find its true strength by getting back to the blacktop?